Chapter 25 of Baby Moll by John Farris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 25. Revis brought an old tarpaulin and 2 shovels from the garage, dumped them on the dock. There was a faint tremor in his lips as he looked at Rudy. The body didn't bother him. He had seen bodies before, but he had always left them for someone else to bury. Taggart and I folded the tarp once, laid it flat beside the corpse, rolled him onto it. We carried Rudy in the sling, Taggart going first, staggering a little in the sand. Revis followed with the shovels. Occasionally they clanked together. The sun was gone and the sky was graying. In the cove where I had seen Diane and Taggart 2 nights before, we put the tarp down and began to dig a dozen feet above the high tide line, at the base of a rocky spine of land. There was some wind now, and fronds shook in the trees with a dry rustle. Nobody said anything. The only other sound was the chuff of shovels as we dug into loose sandy ground. When we had a rough rectangular hole about 4 feet deep, we stopped. Any deeper and it might begin to fill with water. We turned to the lumpy tarp and swung it into the new grave. I made sure the covering was tucked around Rudy's remains. It seemed a small courtesy. Taggart leaned on his shovel and watched with flinty, narrowed eyes. Revis ran a hand through his hair and seemed anxious to leave. "It don't make no difference to him whether he's covered or not," Taggart said. "Let's shovel him under and get out of here."
"Ain't we going to say anything?"
Revis said. Taggart turned his head. "Like what?"
"I don't know. You usually say something when you bury somebody. I don't know what you say. I ain't no preacher."
Taggart's lips crooked. "He ain't no preacher," he said to me in a dry, humorless voice. "You got any words that might save his soul?" "If he ever had one," I said. "I suppose he used it as a down payment on a bottle of whiskey a long time ago." Taggart looked again at Revis. "You got anything to say? Go ahead."
"I ain't got nothing to say,"
Revis mumbled, as if he were embarrassed for having brought it up. Taggart straightened. "Well, I have," he said. He took up a shovel of dirt, rained it onto the canvas with a turn of his wrist. "So long, Rudy. You must have known it would happen to you someday." He turned and flipped the shovel at Revis. "You help Mallory cover him up. I'm going back to the house."
"You leaving right away?"
Revis said. "No, not right away. I'll hang around a while."
"Soon as I get packed, I'm going," Revis said. "There's plenty of cars."
"Don't take the blue one parked by the gatehouse," Taggart said as he walked up the slight slope. "That's mine." I watched him stride through the trees and disappear over the rise toward the house. Revis stepped forward with his shovel, dug it almost viciously into the pile of dirt. We worked hard for another 5 minutes, shoveling and scraping the fill over Rudy's body, making a long mound. When we were through, we looked at each other, then turned and walked away from the gravesite.
"I'm glad I'm getting out of here,"
Revis said. He looked sideways at me.
"Somebody had to wire that boat,"
he said, as if he had received a sudden vision. "I know it."
"I don't want to hang around here where I could maybe get it by accident," he said.
When we reached the house, Revis walked on down to the gatehouse to pack. I saw Stan's boys loading the trunk of his car with large boxes that might have held the files from the room in the garage. Maxine was dressed in a creamy brown suit and his hair was combed neatly. He stood by the car with a snappy smile, supervising the loading process. When the trunk lid was closed, he put out a hand to the door, glanced at the house. In another month, he would probably have that, too. Jerry sat in the front seat and kept looking at him as if she were impatient to get rolling. I couldn't let Stan go without saying goodbye. I walked toward the low black Lincoln and called to him. His boys had wedged themselves into the back seat and Stan had the door on his side open. He turned to me and the smile changed a little bit and became a confident smirk.
"I guess you heard," he said. "I've taken over now."
"Congratulations," I said. Jerry was staring at me from inside the car and I waved casually to her. "How's the Count?" I asked her. She averted her face carefully. I put out a hand to Maxine. He reached for it, but I slid the hand past his, tapped him in the stomach. He faded back against the car, bending a little, a warning of pain in his face. His poise cracked some. "Have you asked the doctor how much longer you're going to last?" I asked him. He glared at me. "Or are you afraid to?" I said.
"Get away from me," he said venomously.
I gave him a big, fresh, warm smile. "All right, Stan," I said. "But you better watch yourself from now on. You're in big business now. You know how it is. There's always some little guy who thinks he might like the fit of your shoes." He gulped, and tomato color brightened his cheeks. He took a step toward me, then turned and jumped into the car, slammed the door. It shut with the finality of a lowered coffin lid. I thought about Rudy and Stan. Stan would have something a little more fancy than a paint-spattered tarp. He would roll slowly on hushed black tires to a place of gently waved lawn. But at the end of the journey there would be just another hole as Rudy got, as everybody got. No matter how far it was to the graveyard, everybody got the same once the trip was over. The wheels grabbed and screeched as Stan gave it too much gas. Then the Lincoln moved forward smoothly, away from the house. Behind me another motor started. I looked at the car as it went by. Charlie Rink drove slowly after Stan. Slowly enough so that I could see the touch of a smile at a corner of his mouth, the satisfied tilt of his head. I had an idea that Rink had made an 11th-hour connection, and his life wouldn't be altered too much because of Macy's departure. His car followed Maxine's obediently through the gate. Mrs. Rink sat beside her husband. I wasn't able to see her face. She had her hands over it, tightly, as if she planned to keep them there for a long time, as if she were afraid to peer out at the world and the nightmare shapes that had sprung up in it. The wind was stiffening now, coming around the north corner of the island and frothing the surface of the bay. There was nothing soft and gentle about the wind. It matched the color of the sky, and it was teething. I felt it harsh against my face. Rivas had come out of the gatehouse with a suitcase. There were 2 cars parked off the road just outside the gate, and he walked toward one of them, after closing the gate from force of habit. No need to shut the gate any more. Nobody would want in now. Turn off the juice and the fence. In a week it would be overgrown with creeping things. I turned and walked toward the house. In my room I put together my few things and stored them in a suitcase one of the houseboys had dug out of a closet. They were getting ready to leave too. Macy had paid them off. They seemed happy to be leaving, preparing for the long march to the highway where they would catch a bus. I was about to toss the shoulder holster and automatic into the suitcase too, then change my mind and put it on. I couldn't be sure, but I might not be through with it yet. Macy came in while I was checking all the drawers to see that I had everything. He looked as sloppy as he had the night I had arrived. He had dressed hurriedly and missed a buttonhole in his haste. One side of the shirt was higher than the other. He lugged a big suitcase with him and parked it just inside the door. "I called the airport," he said, almost panting. "Plane's waiting for me. No time to do this right. We were going by boat first. We'll fly down to the Caribbean now. There's an airstrip that isn't watched on an island, I know. Stay with me until I'm on the plane, will you, Pete?" There was a note of pleading in his voice. Fear was icing his bones. The .45 was stuck into a big hip pocket of the great blue slacks he wore. "I'll drive you," I said. "What have you got in the suitcase? You unload the safe?" He nodded nervously. "I took close to $500,000. The rest can stay there for now." "Who's going with you?" "Diane and Amy. They got passports and everything. They're fixed up legal. I'm not. It don't make any difference." He looked back over one shoulder. "Everybody gone?" Maxine and his crowd pulled out a little while ago. So did the Rinks. I saw Rivas leave, too. "Watch the suitcase for me, will you, Pete? I'm going upstairs. Pack a few things. Diane and Amy are getting ready to leave. We'll lock the house up and get out of here." He turned and hurried out before I could say anything to him. I glanced at the suitcase, then put my own beside it. A sudden gust of wind rattled the window. It was darkening outside. There would be a storm before long. I walked out into the hall, hearing the French doors banging. I shut them, secured the latch. Outside, the palm trees shuddered and dropped in the grasp of the wind like witches shouting incantations. From somewhere close by, I thought I heard a thump that I couldn't identify. The door to Owen Barr's bedroom was open. I remembered that he had been lost in the sudden frightened shuffle after the speedboat explosion. The last time I had seen him, he had been plodding toward the patio after offering me a drink I didn't want. I walked into the bedroom quickly, remembering the cold steadiness of his voice as he had talked urgently to me. Something about being watched. Maybe he imagined it. but maybe there was a good reason for his anxiety. He wasn't in the bedroom. Some of the paintings had been taken from the walls, stacked on the bed. It was the only sign that the occupant might have considered moving out. There was another thump. This time I got it. It came from the bathroom. It might have been a shoe hitting the side of the bathtub. I pushed the bathroom door open, stepped inside. Owen Barr was lying half in the tub, half out of it. I saw the curve of his back over the side of the tub and the protruding ridged handle of a switchblade knife. His foot moved just a little against the side of the tub, and there was the thumping sound again. It was getting weaker every time. I leaned over the tub and put my hand on his shoulder. I could see half his face. Blood ran out of his mouth and into the drain, a tiny red river in a white wasteland. His eyes were half open and had the look of a chloroformed frog. I thought his lower lip was twitching just a little. "Who did it?" I said. "Who knifed you, Owen?" Maybe it was too late. Maybe the speech mechanism was rusted shut. But he tried to talk, and I could sense the great effort, though his face didn't change much. It was a tiny, gurgling whisper. "Didn't see." That wasn't all. He had more to tell me. One of his fingers curled a little. I didn't dare move him from the awkward position. "Carla Kennedy. I saw her. Back was burned. Watch out, Pete." I put my face closer to his. "Who is Carla Kennedy, Owen?" I don't know if he heard me. He was a few seconds away from dying, and what was in his mind pressed hard to get into words. "She got box from car. Threw it in bay. I got it. Hid in The last word stuck, and he never finished it. He died quietly, with one last tiny shiver of breath. The blood spilling from his mouth had a metallic gleam. I got up slowly, holding the few words that had come from him as if they were something light and delicate that would disintegrate and be gone forever if I wasn't careful. There was a warning sound in my brain, but I was too intent on something else to listen to it. Owen had hidden the contents of the box. I went into the bedroom, already beginning to suspect the answer I would find, but needing to know. The bedroom was no different from all the others. I took the closet first, searched hurriedly. No place of concealment there. I turned to the dresser. The top drawer was jammed full of expensive underwear, socks, various accessories. I scooped them out of the drawer, pitched them toward the bed. Underneath I found 6 wrapped quarts of whiskey lying side by side like bombs in an arsenal. I scooted them out of the way one by one, stopped. One of the packaged bottles was far lighter, and there was no shift of liquid in it when I picked it up. I tore the sack away from the bottle. The top had been broken off once, then clumsily re-glued. I took the neck and shoulder of the bottle and re-broke it with my hands. The contents of the bottle spilled into the drawer. I looked at the items. 2 neat clippings about the fire that had burned to death the family of Carla Kennedy more than 20 years ago. A little model of a Napoleonic soldier, trim and erect. Rifle on his shoulder, coat a bright splash of red. A child's locket, engraved, "Carla, from Pop." It was an old locket, blackened in places. My fingers searched through snapshots, some of them old and yellowed. A family portrait. Another picture of a girl about 13 standing beside a man in a wheelchair. The most recent picture showed the invalid man, older now, beside a sidewalk newsstand. He was smiling proudly. He was all by himself. The newsstand was hung with gay streamers. It was opening day. Carla was probably there, but that time she wouldn't want to be photographed. She wouldn't want anyone, except maybe Stan Maxine, to know of her connection with the crippled news dealer in the wheelchair. I had found Carla Kennedy. Like a lot of things you find in life, she had been found too late. "Turn around, Mallory," I heard a hard, slow voice say. End of chapter 25.